we're looking at defense spending in Europe. Europe is tooling up. What maybe NATO isn't dead. Maybe we can go alone without the Yanks. Where did you want to take this one, Andrew?
Well, I think from a startup technology point of view, this trend isn't going away. And I think that's interesting when we look at what we want to invest in, because the military and the defense industry touches every part of technology. And that's good news for the tech ecosystem. I mean, there are some big headline numbers here around, the German industrial will be producing more artillery shells than the whole of the US combined. That's probably a good thing if we do end up in a hot war. But fundamentally, we're going to have to keep at it for a while and be persistent in our policies and government spending if we want to catch up and be compelling as a war-fighting continent. Just because we're still so far behind the US on independent capability. I mean, if you look purely capability-wise at sort of the tip of the spear, figuratively and literally, we know the key areas that we lack. You've got surveillance and reconnaissance and intelligence, and a lot of that's driven by military satellites. The US have nearly 300. We've got a couple of dozen. If you're thinking about projecting power and how to attack maybe things deep inside Russia, we have no strategic bomber force. The Americans have over 150. We can't refuel our aircraft. We've probably got about 150 tanker aircraft versus the Americans over 700 tanker aircraft. Strategic airlift is a problem. The Americans have hundreds. We've probably got less than 100 that you can actually deploy to lift heavy stuff and take it somewhere, such as your soldiers or tanks. And the same with recon aircraft as well. So if you want to go and see what's happening, or if you want to, electronic jamming and that sort of stuff, the Americans probably, ISR aircraft probably nudging 150, well, probably a quarter of that. So there are lots of areas where companies will be able to make money if the governments decide they want to spend the money, and that includes
they have.
And that includes drones and everything else as well. Yeah, I mean, they have increased the budgets, but that's got to continue, and that will have to continue for years.
Will, won't it?
If we're serious.
It's sticky. It's committed. It's slow. That's
what happens if Trump
favor.
does not get in? What happens if one of Trump's disciples doesn't get in, and there's suddenly a renaissance of sort of rhetoric and friendliness from the United States in 3 years' time?
We won't believe them, Andrew. The American public. No, Trump is a symptom, not a cause. Well, my take is half the population of the states voted this man in. This could well happen again. I mean, I don't believe that anyone is waiting in his wings with his charisma and his ability to do what he's done. I don't think Vance for sure can do that. But this is not him. This is a country that has shown their potential true colours.
I mean, don't forget that if you take the case of the UK, like the increase in defence spending as a percentage of GDP has been committed to increase. Increases don't kick in until 2027. There's plenty of scope for politicians to do what they always do, which is fudge things and kick stuff into the long grass, right? And if Trump rattles the saber a bit less, if Ukraine cools down, even though the fundamental issue at the core of what Andrew and all of us have been saying is still going to be there, it will be easier for politicians to kick it into the long grass, because with the aging economies, like, problems are going to arise in quite frankly, in balancing the books in all of these economies going forwards now, right? Where you haven't got the economic growth that you need to increase your tax revenue, et cetera, that could fund all of this stuff. So I do think that is a risk, Dan. Even though at the moment, European defense budgets are scheduled to grow 6.8% year on year over the next 10 years. Like, that stuff should be there. It's kind of set, but though there's going to be Parliament changes, lots of things can change these things, right, over time.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, Lomax, which is, what is the first budget to get cut often in these situations if there isn't a war on and there isn't the threat of an imminent war, and that is the defense spending. So I don't have a huge amount of faith that we're going to be consistent on this stuff. Aging populations, we have supply chain issues, which are going to, where we're at the mercy of tariffs or, prices going up, or rare earth metals. One of the advantages the US has is that it's pretty self-sufficient, actually, both in terms of core manufacturing ingredients but also its own capabilities. And I think Europe is a lot less. Less
one
resilient.
thing I think is good for. I mean, part of the US strategy is basically reindustrialization of the military industrial complex, right? And actually, Europe has that as a sort of stated strategy too. And now, I think all core components, there's a cap of 35% of non-European supply chain that can be in critical components within defense, right? So I think that there is an opportunity. So clearly, some of that will be great for the existing incumbents like Rheinmetall, etc. But I think it will also be good for startups building in the space.